Back in August, when the U.S. men's national team hired Mauricio Pochettino, a foreign coach, the U.S. men's national team legend Tim Howard had a lot to say. Despite approving the hiring of Mauricio Pochettino, he also said that the last foreign coach was a disaster when referring to Jurgen Klinsmann. With that said, one must ask the following question. Is it bad to have a foreign coach with the national team? Does Tim Howard have a point? Well, today we're going to be discussing that with Herc Gomez, that played under Bob Bradley, and Jurgen Klinsmann for the U.S. men's national team. Herc is essentially the perfect guest for this episode. Hello. If you are new here, I'm Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV. And today we're going to have part 2 of this 2-part interview with Herc Gomez. And you can find Herc Gomez on Futbol Americas at ESPN Plus or at the Vamos podcast with Men in Blazers. The first episode, we went through the first 2 Pochettino camps. Now for this one, we're going to be discussing the U.S. men's national team having a foreign coach versus an American coach. We're going to talk about if Tim Howard's points are valid. We're going to go through them throughout the episode. Then we're also going to go through Mauricio Pochettino's comments on dual nationals, what I think, why I think Pochettino was wrong about that, and Herc Gomez will be giving his thoughts as well. It's a fun episode with a lot of different opinions from myself, Herc, Tim Howard's article, Pochettino, which I'm actually quite interested on what you have to say. So let us know in the comment section as you watch it, your opinion. Because there's a lot of takes here and there. The episode's all over the place, but it was actually quite fun. And towards the end, me and Herc have a lot of soccer stories to share, so make sure you stick around and drop a like in this video if you haven't already. It helps the channel quite a bit. It's free, and it's just a great way to support us if you enjoy the content. All right, with that said, let's begin. Okay, everyone, part 2 here with Herc Gomez, and this is an interesting episode now because what we're going to talk about is American coach versus foreign coach. And just to make it clear for everyone that's watching, we're not arguing against Pochettino and Berhalter specifically, nothing to do with that. It's more of like having a foreign coach in charge of the national team versus having a domestic coach, an American coach, okay? Because I don't think any of us would pick Berhalter over Pochettino right now for multiple reasons. And one of the reasons I want to bring this up, Herc, one of them is because you played for Bob Bradley and you played for Jurgen. So you had an experience with an American coach with the national team, and you had an experience with a foreign coach in charge of the national team. And then obviously you have your outside experience as an analyst and when you weren't with the national team as well. But this is what Tim Howard, he put up an article, and then there's a bunch of ads here, but let me get this through. So Tim Howard put an article. I think this was when Pochettino was hired. Yeah, it was in August. It was when he was announced. He said, Mauricio Pochettino is perfect for the USA job, and it's foolish to suggest otherwise. So far, we agree. But then he warned that the last foreign coach was a disaster. So he is referring to Jurgen Klinsmann. Do you want me to put exactly what he says after, or do you have any thoughts to share about that foreign coach being a disaster? Because I'll tell you one thing. I've talked to Jeff Cameron here at the channel about Jurgen Klinsmann. He spoke very highly of Jurgen, but I've seen a lot of players not speak so highly of Jurgen. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, let me just say a few things. For example, Tim Howard, when he writes for the Daily Mail, some screamers, man. I don't hear that when he talks on TV, but when he writes for the Daily Mail, there's some absolute screamers. And Timmy may have his own reasons, right? But Jeff Cameron has his own reasons of why he rates Jurgen Klinsmann. And I'll share a quick story. Alejandro Moreno, who works at ESPN FC, a colleague of mine, ex-teammate when I was with the Galaxy, is sitting here talking about the best coach he's ever had, Cesar Farias, right? Venezuelan, how much confidence he instilled in him and how good of a coach he was. Easily the worst coach I've ever had when I played for Cholos. Like, hands down, the absolute worst football coach I've ever seen in my life. And for Alejandro Moreno, it was the best. And I ask of you guys to think of why for Alejandro Moreno was the best, because of what he did for him, the confidence he instilled in him, how he thought he fit into that program, and what they got out of it, what they achieved, right? Every player is going to be different. They're going to be different camps. I'm of the idea that Jurgen did a lot more good than bad. I will never speak ill of Jurgen Klinsmann. You will never hear me speak ill of Jurgen Klinsmann. That seems to be the way that most coaches are with their players. Now, the last thing I would ever want to be is a coach for many reasons. For many reasons. It's the same lifestyle as when I was a player. I don't want that. I want more stability. I don't want to be somebody's asshole. You're never going to be loved by everybody. In fact, the chances are that there are going to be more players on your team that don't care for you because they're not playing than those who do. Tim will have his own reasons. You'd have to ask Tim. But Jurgen, for me, did a lot of good. And you could see the numbers. One in Europe against countless teams. The only ever win in Mexico, still under Jurgen Klinsmann, gets out of a group of death. Jurgen Klinsmann, Copa America semifinal. Jurgen Klinsmann, one of the singular most important pieces to making sure Christian Pulisic commits to the U.S. men's national team, having the equipment manager print up a Pulisic number 10 jersey for a 16-year-old and presenting it to him, showing him what his future can be. Different things in changing the program. So I will never speak ill of Jurgen, but I'm sure there are plenty out there who didn't care for Jurgen. Now, what I will say when it comes to American versus foreign is it's such a taboo sort of thing. You and I come from cultures where in our culture that we consume the game in, it's almost forbidden. Like you will never see a foreign coach in Brazil. Or if it happens, it's very taboo. Like this is going to be heavily criticized. I work in Mexican media, and anytime you bring up naturalized players or foreign coaches, it's one of the worst things you can speak about. And it brings out the absolute worst in these analysts and these fans. And it blurs the lines of xenophobia and just actual sporting merit.
Yeah,
I don't think it
Brazil.
matters, man.
I was gonna say Brazil. Yeah, Brazil's a bit open to it now, more out of desperation. You know
Right.
how the situation because
No,
they're
there's no
looking.
Brazilian coaches out there. Yeah.
Yeah, they're looking at it like, wait, we still have good players. Why do we suck? And they're like, there's only one common denominator right now. We got to try something different. So Brazil seems to be a bit more open-minded about it, but they definitely would not be open-minded about a rival coach. Like they wouldn't be open to like a Diego Simeone being in charge of Brazil. They
Right.
want like
Right.
Ancelotti or Pep Guardiola, coaches that are more neutral. But to Tim Howard's point, I guess we can go through because he does write why, and I want to get to the point if it matters, which you kind of already said it doesn't. But if it's a foreign coach and an American coach, I personally think it should just be the best coach possible we can
Right.
get. But then he said, I spent 15 years with the national team. I don't remember a time where there was a bigger disconnect between the players and the managers than under Jurgen. From what I heard from Jeff Cameron, that's not actually true. But look at this. So he essentially goes on to say that he organized like a lot of field trips, which, to be honest, I'm going to ask you one thing. Didn't Berhalter do that too? Because I remember seeing Berhalter at the zoo. I remember seeing Berhalter at Gettysburg with the team. So there were
Correct.
also excursions under Greg Berhalter, and he specialized in fluff and philosophical rhetoric. There was zero soccer. I wouldn't say there was zero soccer with Berhalter, and I don't think there was zero soccer with Jurgen. But all of this here that he said, we saw under Greg Berhalter as well, from the outside, right? And then he talks about like places they went to, like the 9/11 memorial, boating trips. Like I said, Berhalter went to the zoo, Gettysburg, and probably a few others that I missed. He dictated when we slept and when we woke up. He decided what we wore. He replaced sugary snacks. Maybe we kind of needed that this summer, and enforced tighter curfews. He tried to change our breathing. He sent us on an empty stomach run at dawn. He hired people, literally made up staffing positions for them. Jurgen tried to reinvent the wheel, but he didn't teach us a lot of soccer. That's something Jeff Cameron disagreed with me. He said he learned a lot from Jurgen. Not disagreed with me, disagreed with Howard. So we had to rely on the likes of Michael Bradley, Clint, Lendon, Josie to bring the team together and win games in spite of the manager. So the lesson for Pochettino to learn from Klinsmann, understand the American player. Even though a lot of the American players these days, if you think about it, many of them were raised abroad in different culture. Dest, Balogun, Johnny, many of them play in Europe. So now you know more or less what Howard was talking about, he seems to have an issue with control, right? Like, don't eat sugary. I thought most of that was common sense between players. Like,
So
but
let me say this. I learned a hell of a lot as a forward under Jurgen Klinsmann, especially a guy who depended all his life on his movement and his ability to release a shot, strike a ball. I got a lot of feedback, a lot of input, a lot of help from a Jurgen Klinsmann. It's very easy for somebody to tell you, do this. It's another thing for somebody who has been there, done that, achieved things to show you where you need to do it, how you need to do it. There's certain tidbits. Now, we didn't get better at soccer. He didn't teach us soccer. I think that was what it said. The national team coach isn't there to teach you. Okay. The national team coach is there to get you to win, bring out the best in you, but teach you is a different thing. As far as it goes to the things in the article says he didn't like, different strokes for different folks. I mean, I've been on teams where I think you need to lay down a little bit more of the law, because if not, players have a little bit more free reign. They'll take advantage of it, right? Sugary snacks and whatnot. This is a short-lived career. If the national team coach wants to replace gummy bears for healthier food, that's what you're going to do. It's not the first time, not the last time. This is what we get paid for, and it's what we do while we do. The relying on the likes of Michael Bradley, Clint Dempsey, Landon Donovan, and Josie Altidore, I think that's a bit misinformed. I was there pretty much that whole cycle until I did my knee. Landon Donovan took a hiatus, a sabbatical.
didn't go to the World Cup.
Landon Donovan didn't go to the World Cup. I think he played one summer, which was the Gold Cup right before, right? That we ended up winning. I was on a cricket field against Antigua and Barbuda, and we were down 1-0, I believe. We weren't going to make it to the Hex. We weren't going to make it to that round of World Cup qualifying that the U.S. men's national team dominated under Jurgen Klinsmann. We're going to be out right there. If not for Alan Gordon and Eddie Johnson coming on and saving us on a cricket field in monsoon-type weather, we're out. Landon Donovan wasn't there. He decided to take his hiatus, his sabbatical, and you could say what you will about his mental health, and he needed it. That is fine. But that affects me in a different way. Like it affects Jurgen in a different way. Like it affects players in a different way. We almost didn't get there. So these moments that we're talking about, great moments achieved under Jurgen, a lot of those were without Landon Donovan, right? So I don't know where he says that.
I guess my biggest question to everything he said is, how does that specifically apply to a foreign coach? Because we just talked about, and I'll tell you one thing, Mike Grella, Mike Grella from CBS,
Yeah.
he said that once, that he would come into Columbus and Greg Berhalter would be checking their weight and checking everything about the players. So it sounds like something very similar to what Jurgen did.
I mean, doesn't it sound to like what we just heard about the Barcelona players with Xavi Hernandez?
Yes.
Like all these rules. When I was in Pachuca, 2010, right before the Club World Cup, the season, right before we went to the Club World Cup, every single Monday that I got into Pachuca, I would walk up to a scale connected to an iPad, input my name, and in comes my weight. And it would give sensors of like grams and I don't even know what else. And then from there, I would go to the next station. Before I ate, you'd have to go up and show up for breakfast. Every single Monday, they would take out blood and they would analyze blood. And they strap you up to machines while you trained. Like now they have the catapults, these little things, these little sensors. And it's all, everything they can control, they will try to control, because to them, you're an investment, you're a product. And if they could make sure that this investment, this product doesn't get hurt and is in optimal shape, they will. You get paid millions of dollars, to play a game, but you're still a product at the end of the day. So they want to make sure that product is taken care of. That's why these things end up happening. Now, Tim had a ridiculous career, and you'd have to ask him why he felt the way he did. But when it goes to what we're actually seeing right now, that's par for the coach for a majority par for the course, excuse me, for majority of these coaches around the world. There are very few players that are, or sorry, very few coaches that are that lax nowadays. You know, Bruce Arena, sure, Bruce is a player's coach for sure, right? I'm sure if you got Bruce in front of a whiteboard and asked him to start doing X's and O's and define, you know, certain formations and the tactical responsibilities, he'd just look at you and say, "Not today, bozo," right?
The power of friendship, right? Power of friendship. That's how he'll go.
Bob Bradley would sit there and love to talk to you about, you know, tactics for hours and what he saw about the Barcelona team of 2012 or how Chelsea this year pressured this way. Bob Bradley could do that, right? And each one was successful in their own right. So every coach is different, man. So it's I don't even think right here with Tim it's a question about a foreign coach to an American coach. I think it's just Jurgen versus what he had with Bob and Bruce.
Yeah, it's just funny to me that Tim Howard referred to it as a foreign coach problem. That was well,
here's what I will say. Here's what I will say. And in Tim's defense, we see this a lot, right? At least I do. When I speak on Mexican media, when I speak with Mexican media on the Mexican national team, we just saw with Diego Coca when he got fired for Jimmy Lozano, when they got beat, I believe it was 3-0 in the Nations League semifinal in Las Vegas, the one where there was like 2 or 3 red cards. Weston got red carded. Serginho Dest got red carded. That game in Las Vegas, right before Greg Berhalter got hired, 5 minutes before it was known and leaked.
By Paul Tenorio, yeah.
Well, yeah, the Athletic. That game, right, or that camp, I should say, the Mexican players were complaining about these exact same things. Our hotel in Las Vegas is too far. It's not great, by the way. That's where the 49ers and the Kansas City Chiefs played or stayed in their Super Bowl in Las Vegas. If it's good enough for the Chiefs and good enough for the Niners, I'm sure it could have been good enough for the Mexican national team. It wasn't. It was too far away from the strip. It's off the strip. They wanted to be where all the action is.
But wait, but how far? Like 15 minutes? 20?
20. Everything in Vegas is 20 minutes, man. But if you get, you know, stuck in traffic because they command a lot of attention, maybe it's 30, maybe it's 35. It's too hot. The training sessions are too long. We're doing too many sessions a day. The coach is too strict. We don't get enough free time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. To the point that one of our colleagues, Mauricio Imay, said that one of the players told him that it got to the point where the accent of the coach was just too much to bear, saying that, like, we wanted a Mexican coach. And that's what they did. They brought in Jimmy Lozano, and they played in a Gold Cup B tournament, and everything looked great until it wasn't. So sometimes, you know, these players, these programs, this press, they feel like only a coach of that nationality can get to these players because they understand the player. They know how he ticks. And I don't think that's the correct way of going about things. If you can get the best possible candidate, regardless of nationality, race, or gender, you do it.
Isn't it funny how, for example, we talk about the whole foreign coach versus domestic coach, but nowadays the coach that gets the best out of Vinicius Jr. is a foreign coach. Like Ancelotti can get the best out of him when he goes to play for Brazil with Brazilian coaches. He looks like.
Are you surprised that Dorival Jr. can't get the best out of his player? I mean, he's a journeyman coach. He's got more teams than you got years on this planet.
Dorival, I remember him when he not when he started, but when Neymar started, and you probably know this story. He was the player that Neymar told to fuck off in the middle of a game when he was trying to get Neymar out of the field. And Neymar was 18 at the time. And the media was saying, we're creating a monster here with Neymar. And Dorival got fired after that. So Neymar won that battle, which was quite remarkable to see a coach that had no control over his players. And that's the coach that Brazil brought in just because he had mild success with like Flamengo recently in Sao Paulo.
Right.
But that's completely off topic. And one thing I want to debunk here too, one argument that people use against foreign coaches of the national team is that a team never won a World Cup with a foreign coach.
Yeah,
right?
Need to relax. Only 8 teams have won the World Cup.
That's one argument to it, but I'll give you a lot of examples of foreign coaches that took underdog teams super deep. Like Greece in the 2004 Euros, they had a German coach. Portugal, in their best World Cup since 1966, they had Scolari in charge, a Brazilian coach. I'm looking South Korea that you mentioned earlier with
That's
Gus
it.
Hiddink.
Yeah.
So the whole thing about foreign coaches not winning the World Cup, what happens is most of these 8 teams that you said, they have or had at least good coaches in the past and still do. They're big soccer nations. They have
They're big
culture
soccer
with,
nations.
so they have it. But many underdogs, I would even argue maybe most underdogs, they usually have a foreign coach to get things going. And that's just one thing I want to debunk right away when people talk about. However, not siding with Tim Howard there because I didn't really buy into his argument. I don't think it was really a foreign coach versus domestic coach. It was more Tim Howard having issues with Jurgen, which, like you said, that's fine.
And I'll
Because
be honest, as a player, as his teammate, never saw this discomfort, and that goes to Tim's credit. That he put his head down and worked.
professionalism.
Yeah, yeah, and Tim's a pro's pro, and Tim's a great guy, and he'd have his reasons, but it's not everybody's reasons.
Yeah.
I'm sure if you spoke to Jeff Cameron, like you spoke to Jeff Cameron, he'll tell you one thing. You spoke to me, he'll tell you one. I'll tell you one thing. I'm sure if you spoke to Landon, he'll tell you his own feelings about Jurgen, Michael. Who knows where everybody lies in their camp, but it doesn't mean it was the wrong coach. It was not a good coach for you. I'll go back to Alejandro Moreno and Cesar Farias, that story I said, that, coaches and team settings and moments are different for everybody. And that's what I think kind of makes it interesting as you go along. Would you rather have a foreign coach than an American coach of the U.S. men's national team? I would argue yes, because there's no American coach that's gotten to the highest of levels. And what you want is somebody who's been at the highest of levels. So that's what I would argue yes for. But if you said, would an American coach understand these players better? I would tend to agree. Does that mean they will be better? No.
And we got to be careful when we pack also foreign coach into one big group, because a German coach is different from an Argentine coach, which is different from a Mexican coach, is different from a Brazilian coach. So when you say foreign coach, sometimes you can get a coach from a country that culturally he understands the United States, maybe, right? So it's a very tricky thing. And even the United States itself, depending on where you are in the country, you might not understand that side of the country.
Tell me about it.
So it's very complicated. But there's one thing that I do have a concern about us having a foreign coach, and it was about this quote from Mauricio Pochettino about dual nationals. And I'll explain to you before we even move on with it what I agree and what I disagree, because I don't totally disagree with him. And this is what Pochettino said. He said, if we believe that a player, he was talking about dual nationals, by the way, if we believe that a player can help us improve, then of course we're going to be 100% involved. I don't want to give names, but we are working with other names to try to see if they want to be committed to us, because that is important. We don't need to convince them. A player needs to want to play for the national team. So far, I agree with him 100%. The part that I have a little bit of an issue is now, and then I'll speak it also from a Brazilian perspective. He said, I'm from Argentina, and I wanted to play for Argentina. If at a moment I had another nationality, a different country for me, no, that's my decision. It's not because of a contract. It's because of the possibility to play in Europe, another possibility. No, I am desperate to defend my badge, which he's referring to Argentina, my flag. I think that is the most important thing. To me, there's two things here. I agree with him. You only want players that really want to play for the national team, but the U.S. is different from Argentina. The U.S. is different from Brazil. We have people here that have parents from, let's use Argentina as an example. Their parents are from Argentina. They were born and raised here in the U.S. So they're going to have that Argentine culture within them, but they're also going to have an American culture. And they could very well be torn between both countries, and maybe a little bit of convincing and talking here and showing how important they can be for the team is important. I'm not saying Pochettino is not doing that. He clearly is talking to them. But I do think the U.S. men's national team requires, in certain situations, some level of convincing. I don't know how much you agree with this, but the reason I'm saying that is because I've seen this with Brazil multiple times, where they just completely ignore dual national, right? We can go through names here. Deco is one of them. We talk about Jorginho and Pepe, from Portugal. So many names that Brazil is like, Diego Costa, you don't want to play for us? I don't care. You want to play for Brazil? Play for Brazil. That's not how the U.S. is, because we have people from all over the world in this country. We don't have that many immigrants in Brazil. We don't have many dual nationals in Brazil.
Yeah.
In Argentina.
Yeah, I think you said it is beautifully said. I agree with every single thing you just said right there. You're not Argentina. You're not Brazil. You're not even Uruguay.
No.
if you're being honest, and Uruguay puts most of these countries to shame per capita with how they export. You don't have the luxury of having so many players out there where you can just shy away from them and say, "No, we don't need you." Bruce Arena. This is before your time, but I'm old enough to remember Bruce Arena, and I don't know if you remember Giuseppe Rossi, but Giuseppe Rossi was an unbelievable player. Manchester United as a team, played in Villarreal, La Liga, Italian national team. At 18 years of age, had the possibility, Bruce Arena, to go out there and convince Giuseppe Rossi, a very good forward, one of the most talented Americans to ever play football, ever play soccer, to come and represent the U.S. men's national team. He was famously quoted, "We don't go around chasing 18-year-olds." Okay? Giuseppe Rossi, he gone. Okay? I think Pochettino's wrong here for many of the reasons you laid out, but also contradicts himself. He talks about the Argentine player being desperate to play for Argentina, and that's what he wants. Well, what's the biggest rivalry you have if you're the U.S. men's national team?
Mexico.
So he wants us to buy the idea of being all in for Argentina. Could you imagine Scaloni telling one of his players not to worry about playing against Brazil? Go and get some rest for your club. He would get crushed, get slaughtered. And his best player. Now he's telling Pulisic, go back to Milan. And most fans are buying the idea. Oh, this doesn't matter. It's Mexico.
I was okay with that one. I can explain why, but I'll let you go.
But what I'm saying here is it's a direct contradiction of what he is saying. Where's the desperation to play for that country you're talking about? So going back to what I'm saying here about Pochettino, I understand what he means about the desperation of the Argentine player, and that's cultural. I think you and I can identify with that being cultural for the Argentine, right? But you don't have that luxury, and you're going to have to go out and find players, because if not, there's no Yunus Musa, there's no Fowler and Balogun, there's no Ricardo Pepi, there's no Anthony Robinson, there's no Serginho Dest, there's no Cameron Carter-Vickers. We can go down the list, and it's going to be a long list. That's the reality. The U.S. men's national team is different, and that's a reflection of your country. But you need to go out and you need to convince players. That's part of your job, and that's something that actually Greg Berhalter did very, very well at.
Yeah, I think what happens there is Pochettino is Argentine, and that culture is just different. Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, playing for the national team there's no other option. You don't really have a connection with other countries, and you're pretty much seen as a hero. In the United States, and it's funny because I think Chiellini said this. He was talking about, I think, Kelna Costa at the time. I can't remember who he was talking about, but he was talking about how in the United States, you can be a national team player for the soccer team, walk around on the streets, and no one notices you. While he was like, in Italy, if I walk around, everyone's like stopping me. And that's Chiellini talking about it. So there's not that culture that you're just like, I really need to play for the national team because I'm going to be a hero here. And on top of that, the United States is much more complex from a cultural standpoint compared to Argentina. It's not homogenous here. It's very confusing. You have kids growing up in households where the dad is like saying, go Brazil, go Argentina. Then he goes to school and they're talking about the NFL, NBA, the U.S. national team with his teammates. And you're just like all over the place, like America, Argentina, America, Brazil, and Mexico. Oh, let's talk about this. How many times have Brazil and Argentina been involved in a dual national battle with each other?
Never.
But what about U.S. and Mexico?
Yeah. It's getting more and more. Yeah. And you can find kids here in the States nowadays where their families like split. There's some family members, first, second generation kids who are supporting the U.S. or some who are like, no, I support Mexico within the same family. That's how complex it gets. So I go back to what you said. You don't have that luxury of being Brazil or Argentina or even Uruguay where you've got so many players playing abroad where you can say, if you don't want to, you don't have to. We're not going to chase you. I think that's part of what this program is, and it's also part of the culture we live in.
So I guess that would be probably the only fair concern in terms of a foreign coach not getting that, even though Jurgen Klinsmann was very good at that. He understood that, and he understood recruiting players. And you even mentioned Jurgen with like Christian Pulisic. Even though I don't think Pulisic really required recruiting, but you know what he was trying to do when we talked about the story about giving him the number 10 jersey. That would be my only concern. And I'm not putting all foreign coaches in one big group, but I do think like South American coaches that never lived in the US and don't really know US culture, I can totally see them not really getting it. They're like, what do you mean you want to play for a different country?
But
Then go ahead.
do you need to get it? Think about let me give you an insight to what the American players do when they come over and play for the US, which they love because it's a refresher. And when I mean refresher, it's an opportunity to get away.
Mhm.
They're in these crazy settings in the Premier League, in the Serie A, in La Liga, wherever the case may be, where they can't walk around the streets without being recognized, right? That's the reality. Football is a popular sport around the world, and I don't care what you think, how small the player is. Sendejas in Mexico City can't walk around without being absolutely bombarded with fans. That's a reality. If you're a player in like if you're in a proper footballing culture, no matter how big or how small, they're going to recognize you. They come to the States, maybe you get recognized. That's cool, but they leave you alone. They don't hound you. So it's a vacation for you. You're coming back to the States. These players go shopping because everything's so much more expensive commercially around the world. Clothes is going to be more expensive because of the import tax, all these different things. So they go shopping, they go eat, great dinners in Miami, whatever the case may be. They love coming and playing for the States. That's them getting away. That's and when these players, a lot of them, like Fowler and Balogun, Anthony Robinson, guys who maybe didn't grow up here, when they come and are presented this idea and maybe they're 50-50, that's what takes them over the top, is how they just get to be, how they feel accepted, how they don't feel criticized. Like it's a double-edged sword, culturally speaking. So you do need to go show these players what it's about. Like, it's not just the program, but what it can be for them. Like, this is a place where you're going to be able to get away. You're going to be able to have fun. It's going to be a platform. And yes, feel American. That's part about feeling American, is that liberty, that freedom that you get with it.
It's funny that you mentioned the difference in cultures there. Kaká would play, he still does when he comes to Orlando occasionally, like play pickup soccer with the Brazilians here at a public park. Imagine Kaká wide open playing soccer in the streets
In a
in Brazil.
favela. Like,
Yeah,
come on.
anywhere you can.
Come
Like, there'll be
on.
so many people around him. While here he just goes, plays, no one bothers him. So the guy can have a normal life for once in the United States. I guess any professional athlete, most professional soccer players can in the US, besides probably Messi, I think.
Even then, there's a reason he came here,
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
because he just feels like it's more less of a chance of him being recognized, or large crowds forming, and more and American fans, if anything, even the ones who just that live here. And I say American fans, you could be Argentine American, whatever. They're more respectful to your time and space. That's a reality. Like, I've been in situations in Mexico where I'm sitting down about to eat a sandwich and somebody comes up and sit next to me and they demand to know what's going on with the team. Like, why aren't you guys getting results? And I'm like, mid bite into the sandwich, like, the fuck do you want? Get away from me. Like, be respectful. Like, they're not all fans are respectful around the world. American fans in general will give you your time and space.
Johnny, when he was starting off at Internacional in Brazil, there's a story he told me a while back that he was a backup even. He wasn't even playing for Internacional. He was a kid. He was like 18 or 19 maybe at the time. He wasn't playing for them, and Internacional was struggling. He went to a grocery store, and fans were demanding more from him, and he's just like, I'm not even playing. And
Yeah.
the crazy part is, like, one, they recognized him, right? He's not even playing. They recognized him and demanded more, while the guy's like, I'm not even playing right now.
I played for a team called Santos, which is a team that had a lot of success in the 2000s. Right now, they're struggling a bit, but by no means a big city. And there were times that I learned I'm not going out to eat dinners. I'm not going out to the grocery store. I'm not going out at all. I'm going training sessions and back to the house. And that's when we would play Monterrey, our rivals, Tigres, or Club America. Like, the lead up to those games, I'd rather not be out and about because the people will let you know, hey, you can't fucking lose this game. You can't fucking lose to this team. Echenle huevos. Like fucking, you guys got to be there. You got to try. You got to fucking give that effort. And everywhere you went, you were reminded. So I would stay away from the streets during those games. Bad loss, and it doesn't have to be like you got scored 4 goals on, just a loss you shouldn't have had. They're gonna let you know. So it got to the point where, like, I'll give you a quick story. We used to play in Torreon Friday night, 9:30, and which is very late. We were the last game, we were the only game on a Friday night. But we would get out there like 11:30 midnight, right? And it was like one of the first 3 weeks or whatever. And we play Friday night, we win like 2-0 at home. And we don't play until next Sunday. So the coach gives us off Saturday, Sunday, Monday training session in the evening. So a lot of players left, right? They'll go to the States to do, take their family shopping or whatnot. Others would go to like, neighboring like beaches or whatever. I was one of the single guys on the team. My girlfriend at the time, now my wife, a good 4 of us and some friends went to Cancun. We left Saturday morning early and we came back Monday evening or Monday morning right before training. And it was regen and training, preparing for a Sunday session. All good. We tied Puebla in Puebla. It was an away game, 1-1. Now, Puebla's a smaller team. Even though we're playing away, the fans felt we should have won. They didn't like the result. The next day, we're in the paper with photos of us at the beach in Cancun, like we were just there that Friday or the day before, criticizing us. I'm talking about front page of this paper, local paper. And you're sitting there like, what is going on? But you live under that microscope. So like Johnny says, there are things like you can't understand, but that's the culture footballistically.
Yeah, it's just to close things here in the episode. Based on what you're saying, if we were a soccer nation, Weston McKennie going to a hookah bar after losing to Panama in the Copa America, allegedly, even though his friend confirmed it, but let's say allegedly, he was there. It would have been all over the news,
correct?
And probably some fans would have demanded more right there on the spot.
I mean, it could get ugly with some fans. Like, think about it.
Unfortunately,
Eddie Johnson once told me a story when he was playing out in Greece, how the owner of the team he was playing for set up so the hooligans or the ultras of that fan base climbed into the bus and threatened the players. Like, literally, they were showing guns and threatened the players to play better. Like,
how is that going to help?
But this is what happens around the world. Like, people don't realize, Carlos Ruiz used to tell me when he played in Paraguay about how, like, there were ultras who would ask for a stipend from the players. When I was at Torreon, I would get asked from the ultras there, the fans, they're that hardcore fan base, to help them out with away tickets, and, they would kind of demand things from you. So it's culturally, like, there's a lot that where this game just matters more to more people around the world.
I'm gonna just give you one quick story before you go, because if we had a podcast, we'd probably talk about this for like 4 or 5 hours because there's so many stories. But did you hear the story about Chichi when he got back to Brazil after the World Cup?
No.
So when he got back, obviously trying to stay on the low, right? It was.
Can we tell the people who you're talking about? Tite, for those of you who didn't understand.
Oh yeah, Chichi. Yeah, Chichi is the Brazilian national team coach from the 2018 and 2022 World Cup. Correct. So after Brazil lost to Croatia in 2022, he went back to Brazil and he was in Rio. I actually even saw him in Rio in 2023. I went to a barbecue place and he was there. And he was trying to stay on the low. So he was going for walks. He went to Rio de Janeiro and he was going for walks on the beach at like 6 a.m. or something, very early. So he's like, no one's here, can just go for a walk. He was mugged, like someone robbed him, and the criminal recognized Chichi and also called him out for the World Cup. So he stole his stuff, whatever he stole. I don't know if it was, I think cell phone, that's what they normally steal there in Rio. Stole whatever and demanded more from Chichi. That's a real story. That was in early 2023 or late 2022.
And look, listen, I get it, right? They're gonna say, you know, I would love that attention, I would love that money, I would love to play football. And yeah, sure, but there's a lot of sacrifice that goes with it. And oftentimes your freedom, your liberties. And to go back to what we were talking about, these dual nats when they come here, that's the one thing they feel, the liberty and the freedom of being American, so to speak.
All right, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you go. And you can always check out Herc Gomez at Futbol Americas and also the Vamos podcast at Men in Blazers Network. And let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you agree more with Tim Howard? Do you agree more with us? I think me and Herc, at least on this topic, we agreed a lot more. The only thing we don't agree too much is the floating Balogun. To me, he's our starting 9. But I'm going to cut it here because I'm not going to let you talk about it. So floating Balogun's our best center forward right now, and he should continue to start. But massive props to Ricardo Pepi. That's been tremendous for the United States and has outplayed Sargent. I haven't given up on Sargent, but he definitely has outplayed him so far. Herc, thank you very much.
Anyway, yeah, absolutely, anytime. And don't count Haji Wright out there. He's the only 9 with the World Cup goal, so don't count him out yet.
And apparently Tim Weah plays as a 9 for Juventus too now.
Yeah. Tim Weah is playing where he wants right now. He's already equaled his regular season, career goals. So we'll see what happens there.
All right. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.